This Softgloss XS machine has been in operation since about 2008 or so. I've been maintaining it ever since. I'm going to show you a little maintenance I do to it and show you some features that this thing was included with. When you first drive in, when you run over these hoses here, it'll activate this tire sprayer system over here on both sides. It'll wet the tires down with a tire cleaner. And then when you cross this beam that starts here and ends up at this upper one, it'll activate this underbody sprayer here, a series of 6 nozzles powered by a big pump in the back room. And you get about 10 to 12 seconds of spray, which can be programmed to last. You can adjust the time duration for that, but I think I need a scan tool for that. I've always just left it where it was when it was new, which is about 12 seconds. This machine is old enough to where these treadles are operated by a mercury switch inside those panels right there. There's a total of 2. They're hooked up in series, so if you push one down, you can't start the car wash unless both of them are down. The circuit won't complete until they're both down at the same time. Except I've been having trouble getting mercury switches because they're kind of dangerous for the environment, whatnot, and people are switching to photo eyes. All these newer machines probably have photo eyes by now. And I understand that this one can be converted to photo eyes, but that's just pretty spendy. I think it's upwards of about $3,000 installed to convert this. But right now I do have one mercury switch if that goes bad. What happens is the wires get corroded because I see a lot of water and dirt and stuff getting in there, breaking into the insulation, and sometimes I have to switch them out. When I did learn that these were in series, I actually disabled this one, took out the conduit I keep tripping over when I walk over here all the time, and I just shorted the wires together over here. So all it needs to activate the wash is just to push this one treadle down and that'll start the car wash. And I'm not worried about having them both functional because customers don't use this car wash. I run them in myself, so I'm not worried about someone driving their motorcycle in here and trying to wash their motorcycle. This machine is set up with these rotary side blasters that are designed to take the mud off the side of the vehicle, at least the heavy stuff, before the wash starts. It'll do that. It'll go to the back of the vehicle and forward again, spraying some high pressure water out. I understand that some of these machines were equipped with I want to say there's an oscillating nozzle that goes up and down, up and up and down like that. I've never seen one. I'd like to see one, but I think the machines that are equipped with a wheel scrubber option, which I believe is a system that has a series of brushes that comes out and cleans the wheels, or something like that. But they also have a up and down vertically oscillating nozzle to clean the side of the vehicle in place of this rotary system. There's this wiper system up here that is designed to take the dirty water off, or the soapy water that will get collected on here during the wash. When it goes to rinse the vehicle, this wiper will come across and wipe that all off. So during the spot-free rinse, that soapy water and stuff won't drip onto the vehicle, keeping the car cleaner. There's a couple of wipers on here. These have been on here for years. They probably should be replaced. They're not a big deal. It's just a matter of undoing that screw and nut on the backside there. You can pull this out. This whole thing rides on a plastic belt that goes across with 2 pulleys, and it knows when to stop. There's some proximity sensors. As soon as it hits it, they'll light up. In fact, it's lit up right there. Pull away from it, it goes off. If I push it far enough, that's when it tells the computer to stop moving. Oh, and this one is equipped with a blow dry, onboard blow dry option. There's 2 big blowers inside there. They're huge. They're probably 2 feet in diameter. Squirrel cage. And there's 2 blades here that'll oscillate up and down to get better blow dry coverage of the vehicles. I'll get to the back of the machine so you can see how big these things are, but they are pretty high power. Rear brush here. On the factory system, there's this one nozzle that usually sits right up here. I lowered it for better coverage of the brush initially, because this is the one and only nozzle that is supposed to spray this whole brush and keep it wet. But that was insufficient because I was having problems with this scratching vehicles on the lower half, and there's no water to really keep this thing clean, except maybe whatever sprays off the lower panel onto the machine this way. It can't really get the brush very well. So in a previous video I had showed a system I set up where I made these aluminum brackets here and added this nozzle that will spray this lower half of the brush here. Arguably the dirtiest part of all these brushes is the lower half of the rear brush, and they don't get much for spray. And I found that since I put these on here, that my scratching problem has gone away. That plus a combination of turning my soap down, because I had it turned up pretty high, thinking more soap, more lube, more better. But actually, if you get too much soap, that's kind of counterintuitive, because it'll help. What it'll do is promote these brushes. It'll keep them from flinging the dirt off right away. Seriously though, these rear brushes, they're the dirtiest at the back brush on the bottom half. The dirtiest part of the vehicle is always, when you go back, it's always along the rear wheels and the back especially. These by far see the most dirt. They need a lower nozzle down there to keep the brush clean down there. Ryko, I wish you would implement this somehow in your machine. I know this is pretty ghetto the way I have it set up, but it works. It does the job. Every machine needs the rear brushes sprayed better. There's this big pump here. I got a reservoir for it. This is what operates the side blasters I showed you, the rotating panels, and it also does the underbody spray. And it switches between the two things via two giant valves that are inside this box hidden away. And it just switches between the two when it gets to one or the other. Each brush arm has two big bearings that need to be lubed. I do this on my machine once a month because I don't really wash a whole ton of vehicles since it doesn't operate 24 hours a day. You'll see one there, you'll see one here, and all four have them, including the overhead rollover brush here. The rollover one has some smaller ones, but they're still there. There's one there, and there's one inside this case here. Inside this box is the motor that drives it, and its 90-degree gearbox before it goes to the bearing. So, on this machine, I think there's a total of 24. I keep forgetting, I've been doing this for 13 years. I forget if it's 24 or 26, I have to count. A total of 4 wheels that are on this machine here, and these each have a bearing on either side here that need to be lubed. And these ones, the frontmost ones, get the most water in them. Well, I'll just count all the bearings now. Each wheel has 2, so 2, 4, 6, 8, and on the arms, 2 each, 10, 12, 14, 16, and 17, 18 on the overhead brush. Up here, there is 2 from this arm here that has all the conduits and tubing. They're about here and here, 19 and 20. Inside here, there is the drive motor and the 90-degree gearbox that goes with the brush, and this will have 2 bearings in it, 21, 22, 23, 24. So I lube all 24 of these things once a month. This machine does it has a capability of doing about 10 an5 It can send them out 5 to 7 minutes approximately a piece per wash. But realistically, this machine probably does about upwards of, 4 or 5 an hour for about 9 hours a day. So it's not too high. So once a month has been pretty good for these. A lot of these bearings are still original and still doing good. This is the panel where the air manifold is. That controls all the air to all the brushes. These are what adjust the air pressures at certain points. And these are all the electrical solenoids that control which way the air goes. To access these adjusters, you have to approach it from the front here, where the main computer brain box more or less is. And these are tightened down by set screws. You're supposed to crank those down so you can't twist these things. But what I do is I keep them just loose enough to where I can still turn them if I need to. Clockwise will turn up the pressure, counterclockwise will turn them down. I try to keep them somewhat near the factory settings. For instance, especially the pressure of the brushes going in on the vehicle. You want to keep them around 40 to 45 psi as labeled. Except the high front, because I do trucks with grill guards, shame on me, don't tell anybody, having less pressure on the front brushes will reduce the chance of me tripping breakers. Plus it'll still wash just fine. This one's set at 45 psi. You see the high front gauge there is recommends 65. I'm just basing 45 off of this other gauge here. It says front air, which is just the regular amount of air it'll typically get. Once you fine tune it to where you think you need it, run a car through the wash and then check it again, because you might find that it might be a little off from what you tried to set it at. And then it shouldn't be too far off. Maybe it could be 5 pounds either way sometimes. The one that seems to go off way the most is this rear trail pressure that needs to stay low, about 10 psi. I try to set it at about 12 to 15 sometimes. I see it's made its way back to 10, but hey, if it's at 10, it's good enough. But yes, definitely check it a second time after you adjust it, and then wash a car. Check it again. You might find that it's not where you set it at. This is the main air for the whole system right here. And this is what shuts it off if I need to do some maintenance. Like when I have to lube the system, I'll shut the air off and I'll purge all the air out of the system with this bleeder right here. That allows me to move these arms freely so I can access the lube points a little better on each arm, especially the top brush when it falls down. And once in a while, vehicles will get run through that I probably shouldn't run through, like trucks with grill guards. Those are a big no-no. Don't ever do that. I'll make a future video about trucks with grill guards and what happens when you run them through. Because you can trip a breaker, and if you were to do that in somebody's car wash and shut the whole car wash down, they're not going to be real happy with you. Not, let alone the people behind you waiting in line for their car wash, and they can't do it until someone comes by and services it. But usually when I trip one of the front brushes, it's usually, I think, one of these two here. I'll know they're tripped because when they trip, they kind of sit at a 45-degree angle like that. I flip them vertical to disconnect them, and then I flip them back horizontal, and then it's good to go again. In the back room, along with that pump I showed you, there's these pumps, these mixture pumps for the soap, rinse wax, rain shield, whatever you might be using. There's an adjustment on here. You can see you can dial it 1 to 9. Something about these pumps, these are really expensive pups. You could pay up to $500 for these things. Well, they break really easily. There's a set screw that holds the dial in place. To adjust them, you undo the set screw, but run the pump with this switch you'll see down here, which you should have. Only turn that dial when you're running the pump. You'll break the pump if you try to adjust without running the pump. Ask me how I know. Then I got parts I keep on backup just in case I break something. I got my Parker water solenoids here. I have assorted sizes. Like I have a couple different 1-inch versions. I have the 3/4, a half, and I keep a few of these solenoids on hand. As well as an extra little rubber diaphragm that makes these things operate inside there. I keep those. I keep a float, one of these guys right here, that works like that. What those are used for is these reservoirs here. Like this has spot-free rinse. This one has the regular water to run the underbody and the side blasters, they both have one of these. Excuse me, they have two. There's one at the very top saying when to stop at the top. And then there's one at the bottom. I'm not sure how that works, but some kind of witchcraft, you need a bottom one too in the bottom of these tanks. So I keep those on hand, and I keep a bunch of hose on hand. I keep this 3/4 inch. This is one of the ones I use most to fix leaks. A lot of times I'll end up buying a splice and just repairing a part of the hose versus, you know, repairing the line starting back here, running it through the wall and all the way to the machine. That's a lot of hose to be changing out. So I'll end up splicing it once in a while. But there was one time, it's this hose right here. This is the one that runs the side blasters. This is the one that gets by far the most action from that pump. And this is the one, if any of them blow out, it's going to be this one up towards the machine. Where they seem to flex the most when they go across those two metal beams that support those conduits right here. If I end up putting like 5 or 6 splices in the thing, then I'll be like, okay, then I'll replace the whole hose, and I'll route it from the machine all the way back here to that pump. That's when I'll change the whole thing out. This hose is 1 inch for the underbody and the side blasters. This is a 300 psi 1 inch inside diameter hose. This is what I keep the most of at all times. There is another 1 inch. Yeah, this is off the water main right here, another 1 inch pump. This is only 150 psi rated, which is usually plenty. But if this ever blows out, there's exactly one time it blew out towards the machine there, and I replaced it with this 300 psi stuff. No sense really having two different 1 inch hoses when the 300 will do just fine in either case. And over the years, I've gone through a couple wiper belts that runs that wiper that goes across the top I was showing you. I keep a belt, and I keep the plastic sprockets on each end of that, because what happens is that these things might stretch over time. These are just a band of plastic with holes in it, and they grab these sprockets right here. I wish they would make these sprockets out of like aluminum or some kind of metal, because when the belt strips and it wants to spin across these cogs, it's going to strip these little things off here too, the cogs, if you want to call them that. I don't know, but usually when the belt slips, it seems like it's because one of these sprockets is chewed up. And oh yeah, this does have 2 lube points, right there and right there. That one I don't do very often, maybe about once a year or so is plenty.